everyone, this is Izzy and today we need to do a spot of repotting. So this is my Maxillaria rufescens and this is a South American species, an intermediate grower. But this orchid for me has a little bit of history. It's caught bacterial black rot and lost a lot of its leaves from these back pseudobulbs. I treated it by cutting off the rot and treating it with cinnamon, and since then it's grown all of these new growths, so it's growing really well, although I'm still waiting for a flower. But now its direction of growth is directly into the edge of the pot, so you can see these new bulbs are almost touching the edge of the pot, and here it's going to get much worse if I leave these bulbs as they are. So what I'm going to do today is remove the old medium and repot this plant in a mixture of bark and sphagnum moss. This is my first time doing a bark and sphagnum mix, and I wouldn't normally use sphagnum moss because of my home growing environment and the fact that the environment here is fairly damp. But Maxillarias love water. So for this plant, I really want to try a bit of sphagnum moss in there to see if it gives it that nice water reservoir. So I'll just try and take the label out, although the roots seem to have adhered to it. So maybe we're going to have to take it out the pot first. I've watered this orchid to make the roots plump up and green up so I can see which ones are alive. And yes, they've really grown well to that label. The original medium is nice and damp, and now I can see that it's not too degraded. So I'm not going to be really fastidious about removing it, but I'm just going to shake off a little bit of that old medium and try not to damage the roots too much as I'm doing it. Because the last thing I want to do is to stress this orchid out anymore. The plant's really enjoying growing to this label, but in general we can see this plant is taking well to this medium and its roots are growing really well. So if I just shake out that last medium there, it might be it. We can see back here, this is the direction of growth of the rhizome out in that direction. So the rhizome's almost gone from going straight upwards to sideways. But in general, this plant's looking really good, really healthy, except for here. That's a new growth there. Maybe it's the sheath, but maybe it's okay under there, we'll see. This new bulb is looking good, except there's a little damage on the bulb there and there. Which is less good. That's because I've left it a bit late to repot it. I'm thinking it's probably alright in its old pot, so I'm going to repot it here in the old pot, but repositioned so that it's got plenty of space to grow in its current direction of growth. So where those new pseudobulbs are, I want it to have space to grow in that direction across the pot. I'm not worried about the old bulbs because they're going to die off at some point, so I can just leave them at the back, and I'm not expecting it to grow out in that direction. So I'm going to start with a little bit of bark in here, and I'm going to gradually layer up bark and sphagnum moss. So here's some of my sphagnum moss. It's New Zealand sphagnum moss that I have rehydrated and squeezed dry. So I've got the layer of bark, now the layer of sphagnum moss. The sphagnum moss I am layering in quite lightly. So this is so that I can keep quite a bit of air around that sphagnum moss to ensure that the plant has a very moisture filled but airy environment. And I'm mixing it with bark so that it's not super wet with all that sphagnum moss in there. Maxillarias really love water. Many from the genus really like to have a good water supply most of the year round. And I've got Maxillaria rufescens here, but I've also got Tenefolia and I've got Kortsky, and they're all quite thirsty. So I might try this mix in the others if it works really well. Just going to top this one off with sphagnum moss and keep it nice and light and airy still. And the other thing I'm trying to do is not bury too many of the bulbs into this too far down, because I want to keep a little bit of air around those bulbs so that I don't get any other cases of rot, because that black rot was quite scary. So this plant's pretty much there, I think. It's got plenty of room to grow these 3 new bulbs to grow out in towards us in this direction. The old bulbs, not too worried, they're tucked away down there. They can still photosynthesize because it's a nice clear pot. So it's looking great. Thanks ever so much for listening. Hope to see you soon. Bye.